I like, click, subscribe, do all that. You already know what time it is. It's Netflix time. This movie's called Forgotten. And I don't even want to give y'all the description because that's just going to give it away because I'm going to give it to you straight like that. It came out 2017. It's an hour 48 minutes long. This movie's so goddamn good. I had to actually think about doing this review, but I'm going to do it. Spoiler alert. Let's get it. So here we have this guy named Jin. He's just waking up from a nightmare in his car. Just chilling in the car with his mom, dad, and his brother. And they're all heading towards this new house they're about to live in. Then we get a montage about his brother Ryu. He does so good in school. He's accomplished and everything. This guy does no wrong. But he has this limp because he got hit by a car last week or something like that. So they're straightening out things, getting everything set. And there's this one locked room they tell him not to go in. It's locked for a reason. They tell him there's somebody living in there, but they don't want their stuff moved around, so they said don't ever go in there. Later on, they get together and eat like a family. Then Jin keeps telling about he hears noises like a little thump or something like that. They just tell him man, it's probably thunder or something. And Jin's on medication, so right off the bat, we're thinking to ourselves that he's just hearing shit. Then Jin and Ryu get ready to go to sleep. Later on, as he's listening to music, he keeps hearing this thumping again. He goes over towards the door like he's about to open it. But right before he turns the knob, Ryu wakes up like, man, what the fuck you doing? He's like, man, you take your medication, go back to bed, you hearing shit. But then at the bottom of the door, we see a shadow move. I'm like, what the fuck? So now that his brother's not gonna go back to sleep, he's like, man, let's just go outside and take a walk. As they're taking a walk, Ryu gets a phone call and he's like, man, I'll be right back, just chill right here. Jin chills for a minute, but then he decides to walk around. But as Jin's walking around, Ryu gets approached by some guys. And they look like some unsavory characters. They end up grabbing him and kidnapping him right in front of Jin's face. He didn't catch him, but he saw the license plate. He goes back home and tells his parents that Ryu was kidnapped. The next day he wakes up, his parents is there, but his brother's not there, so we really know that he was kidnapped. Next day, 2 police officers come through. They own the case. But they kind of don't believe him at first because they find out he's on medication. But yet and still, they did their due diligence. They say, yeah, we're going to catch these bastards and we're going to get your brother back. 2 weeks go by, we don't hear shit. He's taking extra anxiety medicine at this point. He was trying to get some sleep, but he kept hearing that noise again. It's probably coming from that room. Then all of a sudden, he sees the door start opening. Yeah, we're thinking to ourselves, what the fuck is about to come out that door? He has his face under the bed, but then he didn't hear nothing after that. Everything stopped, the door's closed. Everything's all good and gravy, right? But then what the fuck is that? It was just a dream. He woke up. When he wakes up, all of a sudden his brother's back. It's like, what the fuck? He's been missing for like 3 weeks at this point. But later on, when they ask him about the incident, he totally writes it off like he forgot the shit ever happened. So everything's back to normal, I guess. He goes to sleep that night, but when he wakes up and turns around, his brother's gone. It's like, where the fuck did he go now? He wakes up next morning, he's just laying there in bed. So he's thinking to himself, he's probably hallucinating or he's having dreams on top of dreams. He goes in the kitchen to take one of his pills, but accidentally drops it under the counter. He tried to get to it, but his brother came down to talk to him, and he forgot all about it. So as he's eating, he's trying to see if anything would jog his brother's memory about whatever happened, but he doesn't remember anything from that night, the whole situation, period. The family just goes on about routine like everything's all good and gravy. And I have to say, now that I think about it, the family seemed kind of nonchalant when he was gone and kind of nonchalant when he came back. Well, anyway, everything goes on like nothing happened. Later on, Jin's trying to get some studying done, but he ends up falling asleep on his books. Okay, what the fuck? Why is Ryu standing over him like that? Then he grabs his lead pencil and starts pushing the lead out of it like he's about to push it into his eye or some shit. But no, he just lets it drop till it hits the book. And then Ryu left, but Jin woke up as soon as he heard a footstep. Yeah, so Ryu leaves the house, and Jin starts following him, but he notices something. Ryu ain't got no limp. This nigga walking just fine. I smell some tomfoolery out this bitch. So Ryu gets in a cab, Jin gets in another cab to follow Ryu. They go to some back alleyway shit and people are calling Ryu boss. He like, boss, what's my brother part of the mafia or some shit? Then Ryu's talking to the 2 officers that came to the house. Turns out they work for him. What in all of the fuck is going on? So as Jin's tailing Ryu, he loses track of him and then tries to turn back around. But the detectives find Jin. They tell him you ain't ready to know all this yet. Then they start chasing him. He almost outsmarted them and got away. But then Ryu catches him and puts an ether rag around his face. Look at that sinister ass face. Next thing you know, Jin wakes up back at his desk. Ryu was like, man, you was asleep there all night, man. You good? So he goes in the bathroom. He's tripping. He don't even know if what took place really happened or it's just because he missed his medication. Because he's so confused. He comes out going crazy on his brother, about to hit him with a steel pipe. And as Jin tries to tell him what he saw last night, his brother's like, man, you ain't seen nothing, man. Hey, did you take your medication? And that's when he remembers. He's like, yeah, you're right. I didn't take my medication. He takes his medication and Ryu goes out again. He looks out the window just in case. Yeah, Ryu's walking with a limp, back to normal. But then he looks back at his desk and he sees the lead tip that was ejected from the pencil. Then as the audience, we see this motherfucker walking. I'm like, oh shit. Yeah, he was walking just fine. Then when they were tussling and arguing, he said something about, you never seen me getting in no taxis or nothing like that. But during the argument, he never said anything about getting in taxis. So now we know what happened last night really did take place. He tells his mom about the whole situation, and she's like, all right, well, just let me know. Don't tell dad. So as she's listening, she thinks Jin is convinced that that's not Ryu. It's like somebody playing him or something like that. So you think your brother has a twin or something? Later on, he hears noises coming from that room again. And this time, nothing stops him. He's going in. It's just a regular room, but everything in the room is all wrapped up in plastic. Then he turns around and sees his brother playing hangman. Like, what the fuck? But no, that part was a dream. But as he's going downstairs, he overhears a conversation that his mom's having. Talking about, yeah, he found out about what happened last night, da-da-da-da-da, talking to whoever she's talking to. So what the fuck, the mom's in on it too? Like, what's going on? But she must have heard him making noise, so she starts looking around. But he's on like the other side of the door. Now she's about to go check and see if he's in his room. Meanwhile, this guy's climbing outside the window to get to his room. Oh, she got to the room. But he made it, fast asleep. But as she pretended to leave the room, he's like, alright, I'm good. Then he wakes up, and she's looking dead at his face. She looked at the window open, looked at his face, and was like, yeah, it must be sweaty in here, huh? He was like, yeah, it's hot as shit. But she ain't stupid. She knew he heard something. So we figured out she was talking to Ryu as she said her cover was been blown. Jin is now sneaking out the house. And Dad's finally home. But then as he's talking to Dad, Mom shows up at the door, and then he realizes Dad's been in on it too. So at this point, we're like, what the fuck is going on? But Jin ain't trying to find out. He makes a break for it. A crazy ass chase scene, but he makes it to the police station. Now we're being told this story has been told from the year 1997. He doesn't think he belongs with his family, so he tells him to check his records or whatever like that. They check his social security number. And he tells him, yeah, you would be 41 by our calculations. Like, what? Yeah, it dates back to 1977. So Jin's like, man, what the fuck are you talking about? He's like, go check the calendar. And today is May 5th, but it's 2017. So at this point, he's like, what the fuck? Did I just go through a time loop or something? Just to further cement that, we see Donald Trump in there with Korea on the news. Yeah, around the time he was becoming president. Like, what the fuck? Then he looks through the mirror and we see what he really looks like. And it's like, oh shit, this nigga really is in his 40s. So what does he do after this? He somehow ends up coming back to the house. But when he gets there, he goes to that room he's not supposed to go to again. He's got blood all over the place with a mannequin dummy, a bloody radio player, a bloody knife on the ground, on the other side a bloody piano with another bloody mannequin. So the question is, who set this room up like this and why? Then Ryu pops up out the blue. Turns out Ryu's not his brother, he's actually a cop. And he put this whole reenactment together for Jin. Because he believes Jin actually killed 2 people in this house 20 years ago. Okay, wait a minute. I'm gonna need some explanation. Okay, 20 years ago, they were in a case looking for Jin. Come to find out 6 months after the crime happened. No, 5 years after the crime happened. No, I'm stupid. 20 years after the crime happened. They finally found this nigga. Okay, so the reason he's not locked up yet is because they know for a fact that he did it. But he has completely erased it from his memory. He doesn't even know that he did that. I'm guessing that's what the other medication's for, too. And so because he legit believed that he didn't remember killing anybody, they brought in a hypnosis specialist played by Jin's dad. And he tries to get him to remember back to the day, May 5th of 1997. His mom is actually a clinical doctor, and she's the one that's been prescribing him all these medicines. So let's get this straight. Everybody that Jin thinks is his family are not his family. So at that point, they got a little bit further into his mind, but they didn't see much. So this was their plan to go deeper into his head. They pretended to be his family when he woke up in the car that day. They told Jin it was their new home, but it was actually the home that he killed the people in. So you know the noises that Jin kept hearing, and they kept telling him it was probably just lightning or something? Turns out the room he couldn't go in were actually the 2 police officers there. They're like forensic specialists. And they were trying to set up the reenactment of the crime scene. When he heard something the second time when his brother stopped him, they had actually dropped a plant in the room at that time. The 2 police guys and the mom were in there setting up that room at that same time. The only thing that wasn't according to plan was when Ryu got kidnapped. It was supposed to be by the 2 forensic police, but it ended up being actual cops. In the 3 weeks he was missing, he spent down there at the police station straightening out stuff. And while I'm explaining all this to you, he's explaining all this to Jin while they're in a car. So at this point, Jin remembers mostly everything. And all the stuff that happened is legit up to this point. That's crazy. But he jumps out the car and makes a run for it. And in the chase, Ryu hits a damn tree, and Jin's trying to make sure of his condition. At that point, it looks like he's about to be dead as shit. And we thought he was. But as Jin's leaving, he gets hit by a car out of nowhere. Like, what the fuck? He somehow survived and is now in the hospital. And now he's remembering the real story about what happened back in 1997. Strap yourself in for this shit. He's chilling just one spot listening to music, and there's his real mom, dad, and brother as they got the car fixed. So as they're riding around in the car, something happens where dad swerves off the road and a Mack truck hits him. We don't see what happened, but all we know is that both his parents are dead and his brother clinging on to their life. He's filling out a job application, but nobody's trying to hire him. Then the doctor comes to him about his brother is like, look man, we're going to do the surgery now. If we don't, then he's going to end up dying. But of course he knows he doesn't have the money for the surgery, he ain't even got a job. So he's on the computer, he gets a message from the dark web that he sent out. Say he got a job for you, but you got to kill somebody. He hesitates at first, but then he sends the message. As soon as he sends the message, a phone call comes through, the guy picks up, tells him to kill this one lady in the house, but leave the kids alone. He tells him the address and all that. So he goes to the house, he's about to do what he do. Then he starts to have second thoughts until the mom wakes up. He tells her not to scream and he'll leave. Then the daughter wakes up, sees the knife, and she starts screaming uncontrollably. She doesn't stop. She won't stop, so he starts chasing her. Forced the door down, and the result ended up stabbing her. And that's how she died when she crawled over towards the piano. Then the mom came in, and guess what happened? He ran over towards her and stabbed her up against the radio player. Done deal, deaded both of them. After he finished spazzing out, he was trying to leave, but then the son woke up. He asked where his family was. He told him hide under his bed and count to 110 times slowly, and then they'll appear right in front of you. And he went back to bed, but before Jin could leave, he looked at his picture. There's a picture of all 3 of them and the father on the right. Holy shit, that guy looks familiar. Come to find out, the father is the one that asked him to kill the mom. What's crazier is the father is actually the doctor that's supposed to be helping out his brother. He wanted Jin to kill his wife because she was messing up the insurance policy. The problem is he fucked up and killed his daughter too. So because he did that, the doctor was like, fuck you, he threatened to kill his brother. And as the doctor's choking him on the top of the building, he turns the tables on him and flips him over to the other side. He tries to pull him back up, but he's too heavy. And the doctor ended up dying too. Which in hindsight meant you just killed your brother. Because he was the only one that could make him fix him up. Man, that whole shit is wild. So now back in real time, he's laying in the hospital bed. And this nigga Ryu is still alive. And right before he's about to put a lethal injection in his IV, this nigga starts telling him everything about what happened in 1997. Ryu's like, oh shit, you finally remember, huh? The crazy thing is the family that Jin killed was actually Ryu's family. That's right, he was the little boy back then. And after all that, he basically just tells him he's sorry. Now he's contemplating every event that made Jin do this stuff. You think he's just gonna accept a fucking apology? I'll let you decipher it, but for whatever reason, he just walks off. No, seriously, he just leaves. But when he left Jin the lethal injection needle. The nurses tell him that the elevator is one way, but he ends up going another way. So while the nurse is either about to go check on Jin or figure out where the heck Ryu's going, he sees an open window, looks out of it, and this nigga Ryu committed suicide. Like, what the fuck? Meanwhile, Jin injected the needle in himself. He's waiting to die too. He says his last words and Ryu's dead for real this time. And then Jin's done deal for real this time too. While he was the only one in that room with a bunch of beds, I have no idea. And then we get one more scene from the flashback. Before he met up with his parents to actually get in the car, he actually met Ryu before knowing the doctor, before doing all that shit. What the fuck? And then he went to go about his business with the rest of his family. And I'm just thinking to myself, every last one of them is dead now. So is Jin and his family. That's some wild shit. Told you, this movie was freaking insane. Unforgotten on Netflix. Check it out. Like, click, subscribe, do all that. You know what time it is. Like these, y'all, DZ, Mr. Big. Could you goddamn slogan?